It is a wonderful life that you can create when you get intentional about it. And I want to help more lawyers do that instead of just being freaking miserable.
One, two, three, four.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz, and I'm joined with my co-host, Dan Schnoebusch. Dan, what's going on today?
Oh, John, just got the kids off to school, and so far a pretty productive week. I had yesterday I had a fun project. It was wasn't really planned, but I got inspiration from somebody in a Facebook post talking about KPIs. And I just decided, I was like, damn it, I've been putting this off too long. I'm going to do some better KPI reporting in our system. And throughout yesterday, we use Airtable, as you probably remember. And I was like, I'm going to start tracking how long is it taking us to file a case? How long is it taking us to, when are cases sitting too long in the pipeline? How long is it taking us to close a case? And, it took like half an afternoon to put together the date stamps in the system and put together a dashboard to start reporting on that. So now we have this just beautiful dashboard that's reporting on how long is it taking for like 5 different metrics throughout the probate case. And it gives us a green, red, or yellow score in terms of, are we doing well? Are we doing poorly? And it's kind of a running average. And we now have a new NPS tracking system too, where we can see how client happiness is throughout the probate process. So I'm pretty stoked about that. We got it in, we got it done. Now it's there. It's all automated. So I don't have to worry about it. It's just useful data and stuff in real time. But that was my day yesterday. How about yourself? Good, sir?
Yeah, having a great week as well. I love the focus on data-driven decisions, and automation makes that so much easier when it comes to KPI dashboards. I actually saw your video yesterday that you posted and made me want to add a couple and edit a couple things on my KPI dashboard. So thanks for that. I am excited about today's guest, Jordan Ostroff. I'm really excited that he is with us today and to hear about all the really cool things that he is doing in the law space and also in the consulting space. So Dan, you want to do a quick intro for us?
Sure. Jordan is a friend and colleague. We first hooked up through the Maximum Lawyer community, I believe, but Jordan floats around in a lot of the same online circles. He's the owner of Driven Law in Florida. They're a personal injury practice. He, for a while, was doing Lawmatics consulting. You might know him from the Lawmatics Facebook group, big contributor in that community, and now does some new kind of consulting for law firm owners. But I'll let him tell you more about that.
Hey
Welcome,
guys,
Jordan.
I'm excited. Automation is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. And that is something that I think you and I have always connected on. And I think we followed kind of a similar footprint of like, what is, an animating focus and how are we able to achieve our goals? I know you're almost as, if not as focused on automation as I am, very, very close. So tell us about your journey. You have a law firm, you did some Lawmatics consulting for a while, marketing consulting, and now you're a man of many colors and your shirt bespeaks the same. So tell us how you got where you are in the past
Sure,
several
man.
years.
I mean, to sum it all up, like they talk about the easiest way to have a personal brand is to talk to people 3 to 5 years behind you. And so ultimately, like all of my journey has been that. I left the state attorney's office. I opened my firm. I was freaking miserable. My wife and I were trying to have a kid. It took us a year for her to get pregnant. I remember the day that she told me she was pregnant and immediately thinking like, how the hell are we going to do this? We're $200,000 in debt. We're working 100 hours a week. We're miserable. We're making no money. And now like someone's going to hand us a baby into the dumpster fire that is our life. And so like that conversation led to us figuring out what we truly wanted to focus on. It led to me beginning to automate a ton of stuff at the firm, which led to us having a lot more fun and ultimately having the opportunity to travel 13 months across the country with a 3 to 4-year-old kid at the time. And so, really trying to help other firms do that automation through Lawmatics. And then ultimately, like now I'm basically doing life coaching, trying to help other lawyers create the same version of, or their version of my life. Cause I work 3 days a week. I get to hang out with my friends. I was playing pickleball yesterday morning. I've got a nonprofit meeting after this, and then I'm going to pick up my kid. It is a wonderful life that you can create when you get intentional about it. And I want to help more lawyers do that instead of just being freaking miserable.
Yeah. No, I hear you. There's definitely a lot of attorneys who are just working too hard. I don't know where it comes from. Some of it, I think, is fear of technology. Some of it is traditional mindset. Where do you think that comes from? What keeps lawyers from really taking control of their lives and their practices? Do you have any thoughts on
I
that?
think that ultimately it's this like weird attempt to be selfless, but in a way where you end up grinding yourself down into dust. And so like I push more law firm owners to be selfish, to at least to be more selfish. Like we're talking like that Aristotle
Nice.
golden mean, right? Like don't put yourself first at the expense of everybody else, but put yourself first so you can actually show up better for your employees. So you can show up better for your clients. So you can show up better for your family. I've got a ton of colleagues that I know that either abandoned their practice and went to go do roofing in the panhandle, or God forbid, put a gun to their head or had a heart attack or stroke in their 40s from all this. And so then like, they're not there for their family. They're not there for their clients. They're not there for everybody else, probably because they never put themselves first. And so that focus allows you to surround yourself with the help that you actually need, whether it's, what kind of marketing help, what kind of law firm help, what kind of mental help, what kind of automation help. But by really figuring out what you want, you can really support yourself, which then makes things better for everybody else instead of forcing yourself to be this, square peg that you're hammering into the round hole that you don't want to be in.
Yeah. And one of the things that, Jordan, that you said was being intentional. I think that's huge when it comes to law firm owners and the way they spend their time, right? I mean, myself, it's like I have all these things I want to do. And at the very top of it is, provide for my family and do great things for my clients, right? But when you get in the day-to-day of it, sometimes your intentionality gets blurred out by the sheer volume of actual work, right? And then it's great to have somebody come in to say, hey, we got to realign your intentions here to make sure your actions actually align with your intentions.
Absolutely.
Right?
We are what we repeatedly do. So you got to be doing the right things over and over again.
So you started with the first business that you created was the law
Yes.
firm, right?
With no understanding of what a business
Yeah.
really was.
Sure. And now, you've talked about how you're able to have a lot more freedom and do a lot more of what you want. And to what extent are you still involved in the day-to-day?
So I run a weekly meeting. I do our quarterly employee evals, and then I play golf and eat lunch with referral sources. That's the vast majority of my law firm job.
How did you get to that point? Because there's a lot of lawyers out there, I'm sure, that are listening and thinking like, that's a pipe dream. I'm never going to get to there. Or, it's, how can I even conceive of the steps I would need to take to get to that point? What does it look like from A to B?
It's one step at a time. I push all my coaching clients to audit their time. We're going to do it at the very beginning. We're going to do it quarterly. Let's look at the last 2 weeks. What did you do? What of it did you need to be the one to do? What of it did you enjoy doing? What of it actually moves the needle for you? What of it can get pushed to somebody else? What of it could get automated? What of it could just stop happening completely? And then once you take that step, then you look at what's the next step to take and the next step and the next step. And then, you look up, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months down the line, and you're like, holy cow, like this is how far we've come. But individually on the day-to-day, everything looks like just what's that one more step? What's that one next step? And it forces you to, I hope, enjoy the journey just as much as the destination.
Yeah, I know. I spend a lot of time building automations, mostly because I love it, but also because of the effect that it has on the practice. It's interesting that I've noticed like the more of them I make, it stacks up over time. It's like a couple of big automations can help move things along and do a lot of heavy lifting, but gradually you start automating, for me at least, smaller and smaller things because you run out of like the biggest, heaviest, most valuable thing. But I keep doing them because it's fun. And then eventually I gradually got to this point where I'm like, there's a relatively small amount of things that a human still needs to do. And so our team is able to stay very small and still execute at a high level, I think at a higher level because of the automation. So how would you divide that up? Like you've gotten to this level, you've made so much progress. Like, could you put a number on it? Like, hey, I think X amount is automation. This is the most important, or this is, how do you rank order the importance of those different pieces, or even can you? Do they all just work together? Tell me your
Between like
thoughts on that.
automation and what other pieces?
And staffing.
Oh,
that
gotcha.
was something that came up with Tyson Mutrux, for example, last week. He thought to him the most important piece was getting A players in seats, and automation was a little bit downstream. Important, but downstream. So I'd like to hear your perspective on
Sure.
it too.
So listen, I'm going to give you the Bruce Lee quote, right? Like I fear the man who practices one kick 10,000 times, not the one who practices 10,000 kicks one time. So like, not only do you need those A players in the right seats, but like, how do you give them more of the right reps by automating the BS? So like if you've got an intake person and they're spending 20 minutes manually tweaking every contract, that's so many fewer opportunities for them to talk to a client and build that emotional relationship. That's so many fewer hours for them to be able to follow up with people, to do a totally second consultation. For automation is not this opportunity to cut corners. It's this opportunity to truly invest in the clients that you have and allow your staff to invest in like the same 5 things that they actually have to do over and over again, instead of pulling them out into administrative BS.
And when it comes to your actual automations, I know there's probably, a giant laundry list of all the things that are built into your personal injury practice, right? What are some of the more kind of specific automations that you think that your firm could not live without, that, if you're building a personal injury law firm, what are some of the things that are the top 3 or just the very top of the list?
Oh,
when it
that's
comes
a
to
great question.
recommendations?
I mean, look, I'll give you a direct answer, but every law firm has problems. Every business has problems. Every person has problems. So like, you need to identify what your biggest problem actually is. So like, I would tell you, for me, intake was huge for us. Huge. That was the first thing, that's what Lawmatics is designed to do. That's where we started. But if you're already signing up 75% of your PI leads, I don't know the automation's the first, I don't know the intake's the first thing I would tell you to get to 85%. Like, that may not be the biggest issue. So you really need to figure out what your problem truly is. If you have parts of your firm that you think are a 1 out of 10, focus on those. Don't tweak the 6s, because by the time you get the 1s up to an 8, now the 6s will become the real problem. But to answer your question directly, for me, it was intake. Like, that was the part that we really struggled with. And at that point, we were doing like 4 different areas of law with multiple different contracts. So just getting that together was so helpful.
Yeah, I remember in the first few years of our practice, I started out with Lawmatics as one of our first software purchases. And it took a while to understand it, to the point, because I didn't have any money. I couldn't afford to hire a consultant to help me build that out. And it was fun. So I figured out how to do it myself. And so we built out Lawmatics over that year or two, focusing on that sales and intake part, because you need to be closing cases. Like, you need to be getting money in the bank account. Otherwise, you're not going to last very long. But for the first couple of years, it came at the expense of the operations side, where we had these leads coming in and then we had cases sitting for way too long where nothing was happening. And so then it took the process of going back through what's going on with the operations sequence. Like, how can we make this? And it took a while before we found a setup that I really liked, that I felt like we could really take and drive to the stars with. And right now, I feel like we're starting to get there, and it feels good when everything is finally clicking. Like you talked about, the iterating and building one piece at a time, and getting to that point, it can be magical.
When it comes to Jordan, your answer, I love the fact, that, and again, your response was talking about being intentional, right? Being intentional with deciding on what to actually focus on when it comes to automation, right? I think that's a great point, and I kind of just want to, hit with a hammer. There's a lot of shiny objects out there, especially in the legal tech space. And as each month goes by, I mean, with AI and all these different things that are going on, it's hard not to say, oh, this is super cool. I want to add this to my practice, right? But is it the actual thing that's going to help, where you're bottlenecking at, or what's stopping you from getting to the next level? And sometimes the answer is no. And so I love the intentionality. One thing that you had mentioned before we started shooting today was, you mentioned a client experience and how important the client experience is for you. I absolutely love that. I'm on board 1000% with that. Talk about some of the automations, or what do you guys use? And I'm interested to hear about the personal injury law firm, but also your consulting firm as well. What are some of the things that you're using for client experience when it comes to automation?
Sure.
How do you approach
I mean,
that?
so look, I'm in Florida. What does the Florida bar punish people for? The most overwhelming thing? Stealing client money. Great. Please, if you're listening to this, don't steal your client's money. Don't take trust money that's not yours. I think that's an easy one that we all know is wrong in the mo. What's number 2? Communication with clients. The amount of lawyers that get punished because they haven't talked to their clients enough is mind-boggling to me. And then you have these other firms that complain about the amount of clients that are calling in and interrupting whatever's going on to get case updates. Great. Like, here's automation. I promise you, your case has 5 to 10 pretty consistent stages, regardless of what you do, that are repeated over time frame. So how can you automate even just the client communication as we go from stage 1 to stage 2? I'll talk about it from the PI standpoint. You call me, it's immediate. You're in treatment. We're going to try to get the insurance policy. I'm going to update you about the insurance policy. You're going to be treating with a doctor. Then we're going to go into a demand letter from there. So that's a whole nother stage. Then we're going to start negotiating. Then, there's a couple of different things that can happen. If there's you coverage and not from there, we end up having to file suit. There's mediation, there's depositions, all those things. So whenever the case moves across those things, I have a whole email chain to clients. Look, this is where we're at. This is what to expect. This is what we just finished. This is what's coming next. When it comes time for their deposition, when it comes time for mediation, hey, book with us right here. We need to speak to you beforehand. We want to make sure you're prepared to go. We want to, ask you questions. It's discovery time. Let's go through your answers to the common discovery questions. And then we can automatically follow up when they don't book. By just building those things out, my clients who care have the information sitting in front of them before they think that they need it. My staff doesn't have to herd cats to get all this information from them unless they don't click on the 5 emails and texts for the updates and whatnot from there. We can spend the time with them to walk them through the actual questions for their case because we're not sending 150 emails manually. We have this narrowed down to the stuff that actually has to be one-on-one between us and our clients for their case.
Right. So, and what tools are you using to send all this stuff and automate all these sequences?
For the most part, it's Lomatics. So we've got, we built out a pipeline for a pre-suit PI case. As the cases move through the pipeline, they've got the updates. We figure out, we know, so for me, I don't get paid on day one, right? So I know that my average case resolves in 300 days. So we built out, 25% more than we think each of those smaller stages take. So most people treat for 3 months. We've got 6 months of treatment emails that can go through them, checking in, how has this impacted your life? Here's a pain journal. Are you still treating for this? Have you talked to an ortho? Have you tried to increase treatment if you're still here? All of those things. Then for negotiation, we know if we file a CRN, now we got to give them 90 days to respond. So, hey, client, we just filed this on your case. Here's why. They've got a deadline of 90 days. We anticipate we're not going to hear from them for the first 85. So we'll check back in with you. Okay, it's 5 days left. We still haven't heard from them. We're going to follow up on this. We'll give them an extra 48 hours afterwards. Then we can take the next step, just getting some of those things in place. I hope our clients appreciate. I can definitively tell you it cuts down on the random calls to us asking for case updates. And then, I can show you the amount of clients that come back for another accident or turn into referral sources and send their friends, or the people that were their second lawyer because their first lawyer hasn't talked to them in 6 months. They've gotten 0 emails. Nobody returns their calls. It's just wild to me how these automations that will scale to whatever size of firm we ever are allow us to wow people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it cuts down on inconsistency, because, maybe, especially as you scale, let's say you have, 5 different attorneys and, 10 different paralegals and, are all of them sending the same emails every single time? Unless you have some kind of automated process to send that, I think you run into quality control issues in terms of, is everybody getting the same experience? Are all files being handled the same way? I think without automation, it's nearly impossible.
Well, the majority of my staff are bilingual. So not only are we sending these emails, we know which language to send them in. And then we know who to have them talk to so that they can have a conversation in their native language instead of weirdly passing them to 27 different case managers based upon who's available when they call in. It's just wild to me how easy it is to make it better for the client and better for my staff and better for our results.
Yeah, that is not something that we have to deal with here very often, but that is, I could see if you have a big division in language for your clients, that has got to be a really powerful, easy segmentation feature to add to your system. Very, very cool. So does your team use other operations platforms, or is it just Lawmatics is running most of the day?
From an automation standpoint, Lawmatics and then Zapier to bring in some other stuff here and there. But from what we're talking about now, the vast majority of just these client check-ins and easy booking links, it's all right there as the case moves through those stages to let them know what's going on. And it's been great for everybody.
So you just described a beautiful sequence, communication, high level. those to me, I think are low hanging fruit, like the things that most people should be focusing on first. But like, is there anything that you guys have automated that you're like, I cannot believe we pulled this off? This is ridiculous what we just did here. Do you have any like ones that come to top of mind where you're like, wow, we built that and that is absolutely insane that we've been able to automate this? Do you have anything like that comes top?
The one that I like the most right now, if I book lunch with somebody, 30 minutes before that, it emails me their CRM data that I have. Having known them, I know about their spouse, kids, hobbies, what they're into, what we talked about last time. And then I update that to get it back next time. And so like I can go into these meetings really prepared, as well as like I spend a ton of time with people I genuinely like. So it's not really work,
Yeah.
but it's so much nicer to be like, oh, last time we were talking about, their mom was going through a hip replacement. So I can follow up, hey, how's she doing? How's recovery been? And whatnot from there, in a way that's really natural, because we're going to use the booking link internally to schedule lunch. So it's going to send them reminders, and then it's also going to send me the info for their form.
The thing that jumps to my mind is like, I wonder if there's a way, I haven't thought to do this, but I wonder if there's a way to like integrate, how like ChatGPT has Google search and stuff like that now and it'll search the web. I wonder if there's a way to integrate into that automation, like a quick passing of a query into ChatGPT or, some other tool or something to get a bunch of online research data and then pass it back into a field in Lawmatics. So you have not only your existing data, but automated research data. That'd be kind of cool.
I mean, if
think.
not, I figure like Meta AI at some point would have, hey, summarize me what's going on in this person's life over the last 3 months based upon the posts. Like that would, if that's not there, it's coming.
Yeah.
So Jordan, I want to talk a little bit about delegation. I know that, that time on it at the very beginning, right? What are you doing with your time? And then I know that you're huge on delegation, right? How do we delegate the stuff either to automation or to actual people in seats? Let's talk a little bit about that. How important is delegation in your law practice and your consulting practice? And what are you using when it comes to
I mean, John,
tools
let's
to
be
help you with
honest,
that?
delegation is important in my life, and it should be in everybody's life. Like the weird thing for me is reading, like Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss, and then using that to negotiate with a 6-year-old, right? So like taking the business concept of that, or delegating, what chores is he capable of doing from a delegation standpoint? And so like, I like the time on it. I have them focus on like, how easy would this be to give to somebody else? And does it give you energy or suck your energy? With my clients, we'll go a little bit deeper on like, can you afford to delegate this? If you're doing stuff that has to be done by a lawyer, you may not be able to delegate that. But if you're doing things that can be done by a VA for $6, $8, $10 an hour, like it's silly if you could bill $400 as a lawyer to do whatever, administrative tasks. And so at the beginning, I think it's a question of like, which of those have something that you need to do it for any of those reasons. As we get towards the end, I want you to focus on only doing the ones that all of them, like it has to be you. You're the best one to do it. It gives you energy. You enjoy doing it. It moves the needle. Like at the end, I want you to only be doing those things. And so, you have to figure out what to delegate, how to delegate it, and who to delegate it to if it's going to a person based upon their skills and interests. Like I am, this is trickle down economics, but trickle down enjoyment of life. I don't want my clients to create this amazing life for themselves while they're working their entire employees to the bone. Like we need to figure out, okay, this is your zone of genius. This is their zone of genius. So let's delegate the stuff down that makes sense for them and have them delegate the stuff down in a continuous cycle.
Absolutely. And then with delegation comes task flows, right? And automation and processes and task flows. What are you using right now for task flows for your law practice? And what have you found to be the kind of the gold standard when it comes to using automation as part of delegation? Right?
So we're going to use Lawmatics until suit is filed. Then we're going to go to Practice Panther after that, because we can do proposals for settlement in Florida. So the time tracking becomes a little bit better for my team from that standpoint. But like, here's the thing for me. There are things that you can totally delegate to a computer and just they're done. Like e-signature, one form can get a 5-page contract correct the way that you need it. There are other things though, where by delegating the outline of what's going on, you actually make it harder for the person to not follow the right structure. So from an intake standpoint, like if somebody doesn't fill the intake form, nothing's going to happen, but it's going to alert us like, why did you do this consult and this intake form isn't done? So like if they're, writing post-it notes about to call a client back, like that's going to not show up in the system. And now they're making it harder on themselves to take us out of the entire case flow. So there's this whole beauty of automation where you're making people's jobs easier, but also making it easier for you to track that they're following the system. And so that's why like even, automation and delegation should be going hand in hand, because very few things are 100% automated, but you can task flow the system. You can, put together a process here with some component of automation, some component of delegation.
Yeah. Speaking of, and it's increasingly feeling like there is this hybrid in between space now with the advent of AI and large language models where we're automating, but we're also maintaining a certain degree of intelligence, or able to maintain a certain degree of intelligence as part of an automated workflow. So you're almost like delegating and automating at the same time. Have you guys found any interesting or valuable use cases for AI in any of your businesses to this point?
Yeah. I mean, and everything. So like, listen, we've done multiple trainings in the office on how we use AI. Do not put client specific information into ChatGPT. Do not put any non-disclosure stuff, that limit. But once we have limited those things, I want them to be using it as much as possible. Like if they're manually writing an email to a client, great, use ChatGPT for the email, read through it to make sure it makes sense afterwards, but then like send it and let me know why you had to manually, create a new email in this situation. Is that something we can then take and pull into our normal automations? Is there a way that this phrased it that made more sense for this client that we can edit those things? I just think like if you're not, look, we talked about reps, right? We talked about like limiting what your employees are doing to get more reps. ChatGPT is getting millions of reps every day. So no human's going to get better at anything faster than the AI will, except for how to take the AI and apply it to this specific case or this specific law firm or this specific business. So the more that you can train your employees to have that mindset, the more you're setting everybody up for success, because this way, like they're not going to wake up tomorrow and have their job be automated because they know how to use the automation and AI to do their job, as opposed to if people refuse to buy into it. And then like tomorrow we can have AI receptionists instead of call trees. And now like no one at the office knows how to answer a phone. Like, no, my team knows how to incorporate that AI into what they're already doing. It's a tool. It's not a replacement.
Do you have any predictions for, the next 3 to 5 years, the impact that AI is going to have on law? In the
Absolutely.
space?
Okay. So here's my Jordan Ostroff crazy prediction, but like, I don't see how this isn't true. So one, like the AI is going to get conversational with people. So you're going to have the opportunity to not have a call tree, potentially the conversation may lead them to an intake coordinator, and the AI might have a way to know like when the intake coordinator is ready. They could get the quick information and they could basically stall until your person's ready to jump in. But then like moving beyond that, I think for all the knowledge work, like take the concept of Notion and apply that to an entire law firm. So now we can look at everybody's calendar. We can say, okay, like this paralegal has more time in the morning, so let's give them the demand letter. And now let's force the attorney to give them feedback from it so they become better on whatever part of it could not be automated with a template. But now let's learn like, okay, paralegal A does demand letters 20% faster in the morning, or paralegal B makes 7% fewer mistakes if they do it in the afternoon, and like completely take all of this AI machine learning to learning when is best to assign any of the tasks that a human has to do to the right human at the right time for them to be successful in it as much as possible. Cause like, AI is going to take a lot of jobs, but like a litigating attorney in the moment is going to be the last thing that you're willing to trust to a computer, I think. But if I've got an attorney that has a 27% better rate on a car accident versus a slip and fall after, seeing their results and machine learning it, or they're better on trials on Monday than on Thursday, like we could get really nitty gritty about all these data points and actually put people in a position for as much success, supported by AI, machine learning, feedback, data in, ridiculous insights that we wouldn't be able to get just by ourselves as a human because it's anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I had not considered the impact that AI is going to have on just on data analytics, because a lot of people don't realize like your practice management software is just a treasure trove of data about, but like you probably don't know how to report on it, and or you haven't thought to add a report on it. And so, are you actually extracting all the interesting insights? Because there's like, I mean, you look take Lawmatics for example. If you can tell when you if you look at their API documentation, or if you look at what is a Zapier payload, JSON payload return when a matter converts, just like how many pieces of data are attributed to that matter file, or a task record, or a document record, or a contact record, or something like that. It's like on the order of, or it can be on the order of like hundreds of different data points per record. And are you reporting on like all of those or any of those? Like probably only a fraction. So it'd be interesting to know like what kind of trends or interesting pieces of insight an AI model could pick out that we aren't even noticing because we don't even think
Well,
to
and
look for it.
imagine, like from a
Very, very,
probate perspective, imagine being able to say definitively, like if this paragraph is phrased this way in front of this judge when it's filed, it gets resolved 28% faster, or they roll into the client's favor 12% more time, and whatever it's going to be. We are scratching the surface of knowing how computers will learn how different humans think to be able to put those humans in the best position to think the way that we want.
yeah. I think big data is going to have to become even bigger, because right now it's like you track a lot of stuff, but like, even though I'm saying like there are hundreds of things that are being tracked in your system, there is like hundreds or thousands more. Like, how long does it take between task A and task B? Like the system's probably not tracking that by default, but like, could you have an AI that's like generating that property for you because you told it, I want to know, this piece of data, or give me some ideas on interesting new things to track, and how would we integrate that into the system? There's definitely big stuff coming. I've seen a lot going on. I've been doing a lot of software, like learning software development myself, mostly just for fun and for play. And there's so much going on in that space now with AI augmented programming, that my prediction is we're going to see a huge explosion of just rapid implementation of new features in a lot of these software tools, especially the small scale, like new startups in the legal tech space. Like the big enterprise players like Clio and stuff, they have giant machines to move, like lots of hundreds of people doing lots of things, and AI will help them like integrate code better. But the people who are really going to go crazy with it are these like 3-man dev teams that are able to code 20 times faster than they could before, and pump out features like crazy. It's going to be a very interesting ride in the next few years, like what we're going to see automated, what we're going to see AI integrated into, and I'm excited for it.
Jordan, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, if that's okay. And I want to kind of focus on your consulting practice, right? When it comes to working with law firm owners, is it only law firm owners, or is it other business owners as well?
Currently it's only law firm owners because I know that so much better. I don't know what the difference is, especially when I'm helping them get out of doing legal work. Obviously, like, it's a felony in Florida to do legal work without a license or get paid for it. But yeah, I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much that's just consistent across every business.
So what are you seeing when it comes to, I mean, you're working with the law firm owners, you're working on time auditing, delegation. What are you seeing are the biggest pain points? Is there kind of a common thread amongst the law firms of what you're seeing problems, or is it a case by case basis, or can you give us some insight? Are law firms kind of having the same problems of what you're seeing when it comes to what they're struggling with? for
Everyone
growth?
has the same problems. We all, at the end of the day, we all either don't have enough time, don't have enough money, or both. And so a lot of times it's, I don't have enough cases. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's a bad intake system. Sometimes it's not charging enough. And then ultimately becomes, well, now I don't have enough help to handle the cases now that I do have them. And sometimes that's a delegation issue. And sometimes that's a system issue. And sometimes that's an automation issue. But at the end of the day, I think everything is either time or money or both.
Yeah, I mean, when you boil it down, that's 100% right. I would agree with that. Are you seeing when it comes to actual people's systems and automation, when you're working with firms, are you seeing kind of an entry level, or are you seeing, sophistication when it comes to, tech and built into firms? Or how are people when it comes to automation and building tech
Well,
into their
so
law
I'm
firms?
$1,500 a month for 2 50-minute meetings. So like we are like I'm not seeing the beginning. I'm usually seeing the like I have enough money coming in, but I don't want to be working 60, 80 hours a week and being miserable.
Yeah.
Which hopefully normally means they have somebody who did that stuff or is doing that stuff for them instead of, I just go back to this law firm owner out there who's beating themselves up because they're doing a terrible job, because they're doing a full-time lawyer job and a full-time marketer job and a full-time system automation job and a full-time sales job and a full-time paralegal job, even in 80 hours, and they're aggravated at themselves for failing. I'm like, but you're doing 6 people's work in 1/6 the time, or trying to, like, God bless you. Um, that's the thing for me. It's just like, I think there's so many people that bite off more than they can chew, but like literally just because we have 24 hours in a day, not for any actual ability, bite off more than they can chew.
If you had, some advice for, law firm owners who are, like you said, working that 60, 80 hours a week, what's the biggest first thing that, that you think they should do to kind of start getting their bearings and digging out from under the pile?
So that's a great question. I mean, I would go either, I guess I'll go the slightly longer answer. So like I have them answer 3 questions. How much do you need to make? When do you want to work? What work do you want to be doing? And those 3 allow us to sort of orient the GPS of life to a destination. So then we're going to audit time. And then I mentioned this before, but like I love the Eisenhower matrix from Dwight Eisenhower. It's a quad, and it's, do you do it? Do you defer it? Do you delegate it? Or do you drop it? And so like, as you're doing the time audit, let's go through those things. If it's something that can be done in 2 minutes, just do it. Like, don't put it on a to-do list. Don't put it on your calendar. Like, just get it done if it's that quick. If it is going to take longer, defer it, to when you're going to be able to do it. Like, with Dan setting up all those KPIs in one afternoon, that's going to end up saving you hundreds of hours and allow you to make thousands of better decisions because you were able to get that done. So defer it to a time where you can do the deep work. If it's delegate, who are you going to hand it to? Is it something that can be automated? Is it something that can be outsourced? And then drop. Like, we are all doing a ton of things that are completely pointless. All of us, myself included, in 25 hours a week of work, I'm still wasting a ton of that time. I don't know if I agree with Pareto about, 20% of my efforts make 80% of my outcomes. There are certain things where I think it's 99-1 and certain things where I think it's a little bit closer to being fair, but we're all wasting a bunch of time. So figuring some of those things out becomes huge. And then like I tell them to wedge their time. So if we save 2 hours a week from going through this process, you get 1 hour back to do whatever the heck you want, and then reinvest 1 hour on the next batch of delegation, automation, however you're going to get this stuff off your plate until you get to where you want to be. And then that's, playing golf, watching Netflix, whatever it is, while still having a business you can be proud of and living a life that's even better.
Nice. Well, we're coming up on time, and every week, one of the things we do is we have just a quick kind of tip of the week of something interesting that you've discovered, or a new automation that you put in, or a new book you read, or a resource that you find valuable. So any why don't we start with John? John, got any tip of the week?
Absolutely. In our last episode, Dan, we had talked about, me wanting to build like this knowledge base, right? And I use document automation has been the backbone of my probate practice. I mean, all we do is probate here in Missouri. It's been the backbone of, the amount of time we've saved with document automation. Now I'm thinking like now that the system is built, building that knowledge base, but using a custom GPT. So I started building a custom GPT this week, and I'm starting to input data into it. And so, I think it's going to be as big or as equal as my document automation has been for my probate law practice. Having this knowledge base where I think in a year, probably a year, I could build it to where people are asking, my team is asking the knowledge based questions and not me, right? So I'm not getting those questions constantly like, hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? Or what do I do in this particular situation? Because they're almost all the same, right? It's the same question, the same answer, right? Because the cases don't vary that much. So building that knowledge base, having it be in a really easy user format where custom GPT can answer the questions. So if you haven't played with a chat GPT, creating a custom GPT, try it out. It's really cool, and see what you can do to help your practice with it.
I'll add one piece to that. The one odd part about custom GPTs is they're separate from the assistance API, even though they're basically the same thing. So you can actually duplicate the same instructions, same information into the assistant on the back end. So you can have a front end version and a back end if you want to access it through Zapier or Make.com. Just an extra way to boost things up a little bit if you want to put it into automated workflows. So my tip of the week would be to, on this theme of automation and digging yourself out of a hole, is I like Jordan's idea of starting with a time audit and think about the things that are sucking away your time, that are not valuable, that are not the highest and best use of your time, but also that can be automated, and be creative. And if you're not sure if it can be automated, ask a Facebook group, ask a community, join Legal Tech Collective, ask, is this something we can automate? Like, how would you guys approach that? Because there's a good chance you don't know what all the tools are that are out there. So do a little research, and don't give up on an idea and assume that it can't be automated without doing a little research on it first. And then pick one of those things that is wasting your time, that can be automated without a tremendous amount of effort, and see what you can do. If you can't do it yourself, hire somebody, talk to somebody, see what you can pull off. It could just be the thing that takes you from pulling your hair out this week. Jordan, any tip?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound like I'm just responding to what you said, but this is what I had when you first mentioned it. So, I wish I could take credit for this idea. I can't. I don't know who to give credit to. It wasn't me. We talk about compound interest all the time, right? Like, if you invested $5 in the market every month for so long, at the end of it, you're a multi-billionaire at whatever time frame. Automation is compounding time. So the sooner you get these automations in place, if you even just bill pay, right? Like, if you spend an hour a month paying a bunch of bills, you set it up on bill pay, and now you're saving an hour a month. So the sooner you do that, it's one extra hour that you have saved for this time. So, like, into what Dan said, and I think John's is a phenomenal use of this idea. Like, the sooner you put that internal GPT in place, the sooner you save yourself answering 100 questions a week that are the same questions over and over again. But, like, think about automation from a compounded time standpoint.
Wow, that's a really interesting insight. I haven't thought about it that way, in that and with that analogy, but I think it's absolutely right. Every time you save 10 minutes, multiply that out over 30 years. Okay. So that's it for this week, guys. Appreciate you joining us. Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people get in touch with you, Jordan, if they're hurt, or they want to learn more about getting out of their law firm, the day-to-day of their law firm? How do they get in touch with you?
So there's only 2 Jordan Ostroffs in the world. The other one's like this great salesperson in like the Boston area who gets a bunch of job offers emailed to me. So you're his boss, like, give that man a raise. Or there's me, the Hawaiian shirt wearing bearded lawyer. So jordanostroff.com or Lawyer of the Life on Instagram. You will find me. And then if I'm the right vibe for you, let's talk.
Very good. Very good. And if you enjoyed the show, folks, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts, because that is what helps people find us. If you want to take the conversation offline and share your exciting ideas, or get feedback on ideas, or just talk tech, join the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group, where we talk about tech and automation every day. All right. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Until next time.